They doubted him. The odds makers had him as an underdog. They said he was going to be too chinny to beat Gamrot, and he is still undefeated in Brazil with another glorious victory, becoming the first fighter to ever finish Mateusz Gamrot, and he submits him in the second round. Who would have thought that we would see juggernaut Charles Oliveira eating shots like Kelvin Gastelum, taking blows like Dan Hooker? Ilia enhanced Oliveira's chin. Or it's just that Gamrot has no power. It's definitely that. Gamrot was hitting Oliveira with flush punches to the jaw, across the head, and Oliveira was unfazed, walked through the shots, mistaking them for mosquito bites, just straight up Vittori'd those punches, and proceeded to walk Gamrot down and essentially bully him into submission. There is something strange about losing to Ilia Topuria. Everybody he's defeated, except Yusuf Zalal, won their next fights. But now Charles Oliveira is included with a stellar performance against Mateusz Gamrot. And this fight was so interesting with how different the second round approach was. Oliveira gave Gamrot no respect in the second. It's interesting because Gamrot landing punches was a necessity, of course, right? He needed to land punches, but it also gave Oliveira the assurance that he doesn't have to be concerned with being ultra aggressive. He felt no danger against Gamrot. He gave no respect to Gamrot's punching power. And interesting enough, notice how Gamrot didn't shoot a single takedown in the second. There was good reason for that after grappling with Charles Oliveira, as it was sort of a retraction from his prior opinion considering Oliveira's abilities. Gamrot said prior that he can grapple well with Oliveira. Well, after getting tangled up in that omoplata and then getting reversed, Gamrot completely abandoned any wrestling attempt after that. As the wrestler that he is, he refused to shoot a takedown in effect of that. Talk about giving respect to Oliveira and then was not reciprocated. Oliveira activated Terminator mode in that second round, trading shots, tanking all of Gamrot's, and just completely disregarding his power. Even shot a takedown, lifted him in the air as Gamrot was trying to defend using that knee shield. And when Oliveira wasn't able to secure that initial takedown, he literally just ran him over, bulldozed him to the ground, and Gamrot still holding onto that whizzer was the only thing that was halting Oliveira from securing that dominant position, and he did. As soon as Gamrot let go of the whizzer, Gamrot gave his back up and there wasn't really much of an option there, so he was turtling because of Oliveira's position, obstructing Gamrot's ability to get to his guard, right? Oliveira is entirely on his side, so Gamrot had to get to his base, and Oliveira started working. He was fighting the hands, and Gamrot elevated by getting onto one knee, and that gave Oliveira the opening for the left hook to cling on. And at the same time, Oliveira has a seatbelt grip, right arm close to the neck and left arm under the armpit, controlling the body but providing a sense of danger from a potential choke. So Gamrot is specifically holding on to the potential choking hand. And as soon as Oliveira extended his right arm to grab onto Gamrot's right, it caused Gamrot to release his grip, and now neither of his hands are defending his own neck. So Oliveira attacks with the choke, using that one arm first. He's slowly securing that submission. So then Gamrot focuses to push up the elbow from getting under his chin. And at the same time, notice that Oliveira's right hand is in between Gamrot's. He maneuvers that hand to grab onto Gamrot's left, weakening the defense on the choke, as well as distracting him from the right hook clinging on. He brings that right leg across. Gamrot is still entirely focused on the choke, but focusing on the position is crucial. And now Oliveira has both hooks in, secured the full position, and now only has to focus on the choke. It's quite interesting how that works. Oliveira is prioritizing getting the hooks in first to secure the position, while Gamrot is prioritizing defense against the choke first, essentially causing himself to be idle until he has to defend the choke. Now this causes a greater sense of danger from the choke and allows Oliveira to maneuver that right leg to cling on for the second hook, securing the full position. And because Gamrot is still focused on the choke, he doesn't stop Oliveira from pulling his right hand out, completing the choke. And that is a wrap. Oliveira was multiple steps ahead in the grappling. And not only shown in the second round, but even in the first. Mateusz Gamrot shot the only takedown in the first round, and he did not return to it in the second round for very good reason. The setup was beautiful, by the way. Gamrot fires a left straight from southpaw, stepping on the outside of the lead foot, causing a distraction for Oliveira to guard up high, which is going to take his attention off from defending a potential takedown. So Gamrot attacks with a single leg takedown, turns the corner and gets it, while Oliveira initially attacks with the guillotine, which gets defended. It looked like he was talking to Mark Goddard, and he did this a few times throughout the fight. It seems like he was telling him that Gamrot was grabbing onto his glove, but who knows? It was difficult to see. Eventually, though, Oliveira gets into his guard, but continues his offense. He throws up his left leg while angling to his right, and Gamrot starts focusing on that one leg, grabbing onto the ankle and tries to push it down. All the while, he continued moving on that right angle and persistently kicking up that left leg until it eventually gets past the head. He secures the omoplata. Horrible start for Mateusz Gamrot. So from here, Gamrot has to make some adjustments and defend the omoplata. Now, it's not normally used for submissions, but rather reversing or scrambling the positions, although it can submit the opponent. So Oliveira gets wrist control with his left hand, and notice how he reaches behind Gamrot with his right arm. The man was thinking so far ahead, he predicted that Gamrot was going to stand up. Reached there before Gamrot even stands, waits for it, and then hooks around the ankle, inhibiting Gamrot from moving, specifically from stepping over him or angling. Notice how Gamrot tried to step to his left? Well, now Oliveira, hugging that ankle, anchors Gamrot in position. As you can see, Gamrot stands and tries to pull out, but he's stuck. He tries to sit away and stretch out Oliveira's leg, but it was ineffective. But Gamrot is persistent, gives it another pull, and finally starts to slip his arm out, making it efficient for Oliveira to abandon the omoplata and fight in the guard. And you would think that Gamrot might eject from the grappling entirely and force the fight standing from there because he stood up, but return to the ground, throwing a left hand which misses, and using that momentum, he tries to pass the full guard on his re-entry into the grappling, but Oliveira halted that, obstructing him with his left leg, the foot pushed into the thigh, and the knee blocking the body from passing through. And Gamrot's stubbornness of pursuing that transition caused that left arm to be anchored onto prior to Oliveira securing the full guard position. And now Gamrot has to fight in the guard, and he already is compromised because Oliveira is controlling that left arm, allowing him to angle around it and throw up another omoplata. Gamrot tries to resist it, but ultimately Oliveira fights through it and secures it. But there is one crucial difference here. Because Oliveira anchored onto the arm with his own instead of the leg like before, he essentially gave Gamrot freedom of stepping around him. There is nothing anchoring Gamrot's left leg, so he simply just jumps over Oliveira, forcing a battle here for position. Now Gamrot is obstructing Oliveira from posturing up and leaning forward and reversing the position using that omoplata. Notice how Oliveira can't step forward. It's from the one leg that he didn't anchor. This issue was not present for the first omoplata and why Oliveira chose to anchor the leg. So the positional battle commences. Oliveira wins through forward momentum due to Gamrot being in a more unstable position, reversing the position using that omoplata, and Gamrot's last-ditch effort to hold on to any sort of advantage is to attack with a leg lock and hoping it scrambles things enough for him to get up. But that is not going to work against Oliveira. He simply stands up, rotates, pulls his leg away, circles back, and goes to get the top position, but Gamrot makes a drastic mistake. He becomes way too hasty to stand up instead of getting into his guard. That gave Oliveira an opening to begin his top grappling from side control. He gave Oliveira side control immediately because he was so desperate to stand up in that moment. He was inefficient on top, so it looked like he tried to completely abandon the grappling. And in doing so, now Oliveira's on top in side control, and Gamrot instantly turtles. He decides to posture up more, opening up space for Oliveira to secure the hooks. Rolls them around, gets both hooks in, attacks with a rear naked choke, and now Gamrot understands at this point, okay, yeah, Oliveira is very different. His grappling is as good as they said. Perhaps I should not be grappling with this guy. Gamrot eventually stands up, but Oliveira is kicking out that left leg, causing Gamrot to put more weight on his right leg, collapsing the stance, and they both fall to the ground again. But Gamrot does a good job on fighting the hands and survives the first round. And then the striking exchanges became very intriguing. Mateusz Gamrot was landing some good shots. He was putting together combinations and started relying more on his striking skills. And early on, he was having surprising success, landing right hooks around the guard, setting up off his jab, and sometimes Oliveira would step away and give him that sort of respect. But after feeling the first two right hands from Gamrot is when Oliveira started to get more reckless with his aggression. Because he could. He understood that Gamrot didn't have the power to hurt him. The pressure was overwhelming, even though Gamrot was landing more shots. He was landing more strikes than Oliveira in the second round, but it felt like he was losing morale and momentum. Like even at one point, Gamrot would throw in another combination, starting with the jab, missing that and the right straight that followed, throws another left, and Oliveira stepped away from the combo, clinched up with him, stood there against the flailing punches, countering him with a right uppercut into a left, setting Gamrot into his perpetual lateral movements. Oliveira would walk into more punches, clinch, and then throw some left hooks at the disengagement. As Gamrot strides away from him, Oliveira throws another right uppercut, falls up with the left, both punches miss. From the inside slip, Gamrot counters with a pretty solid overhand, but Oliveira victorious the punch, clinches, Gamrot pulls his head out and stumbles across the fence, and the sheer confusion on Gamrot's face tells the story. He did not expect to be fighting Terminator Oliveira. Then Gamrot later throws another left straight into a right hook, once more lands a flush shot, and Oliveira walks through the punch, gets grazed by another left straight, clinches up with him to deliver with a powerful elbow, and just does not let up on the pressure until he eventually takes him to the ground. This was such a magnificent performance from Charles. First ever to finish Gamrot, submitted him in the second round, and much praise to Mateusz Gamrot for taking the fight on short notice. Both guys showed much respect to each other, but Oliveira called out Max Holloway for the BMF title. Let's do it. Max said he's going to fight next year. This lines up perfectly with Charles, and we get to finally enjoy technically the rematch, but the first fight didn't really happen. The fight ended immediately due to an injury. This is like the first true fight between these two, and I wonder how they're going to perform. Oliveira looked great here against Gamrot, but he cannot withstand those same type of shots from Max. But maybe his grappling is just far superior. Perhaps Max can grapple to the level of Gamrot, causing that to be a greater discrepancy than what we saw here. So that is going to be quite interesting. And I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. If you did, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. Leave in the comments what did you guys think of the fight, and who do you think wins between Max and Charles. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Podcast tomorrow too.